Charles Windolph, a German immigrant and U.S. Army soldier of the 7th Cavalry, survived the Battle of the Little Bighorn and became known for the depth and honesty of his account. He rode into history as a frontline witness, not a legend, but a man under fire, seeing chaos, courage, and failure up close. His words carry the heat of gunsmoke, the fear of encirclement, and the weight of comrades lost, offering Americans today a clear, human window into Custer's final stand. On the 25th of June, 1876, Custer's regiment of roughly 600 men split into separate detachments, fanning out across the broken hills and deep river valleys of the northern plains. Their objective was clear: to strike fast and scatter the Native American forces camped along the Little Bighorn. Most officers estimated they faced perhaps 12 to 1,500 warriors, enough to test their strength, but still a fight the 7th Cavalry believed it could control. Yet the scouts had seen more, far more. They whispered of thousands gathered in one vast encampment, a force unlike anything the regiment had faced before. Still, the column pressed forward, committed to the pursuit, riding under a hot summer sun with rifles slung low and nerves stretched tight. This moment, the decision to divide and advance, would shape everything that followed. It was confidence, calculation, and fate colliding on the edge of history, as 600 men rode toward a battle they did not yet understand, against a nation determined not to yield its land or its way of life. Custer delayed the planned dawn assault, then pressed forward instead, driving his men deeper into the broken country. The land rose and fell in harsh ridges and twisting ravines, slowing every mile. Scouts rode ahead and returned with the same report: no enemy in sight, no sign of movement. So the column advanced with growing tension, moving toward a battlefield they could not yet see. After riding past the smoldering remains of burned teepees, Windolph's group began to hear the sharp crack of gunfire drifting in from the distance. At first it sounded like scattered shots carried on the wind. Then it grew steadier, faster, like a drumbeat rolling across the lonely hills. They pushed their horses harder toward the Little Bighorn Valley, dust swirling at their backs, the air thick with the smell of smoke and fear. No one joked now. No one pretended this was still a simple scout. Every man felt it in his chest. A heavy battle was raging ahead, and whatever waited for them in that valley was already beyond turning back. As they crested the line of low hills, the world seemed to open beneath them, and the valley below exploded into view. What they saw was not order or formation, but a swirling storm of men and horses locked in desperate combat. Blue-coated soldiers and Native American warriors surged across the broad valley floor, each side moving in broken waves, charging, wheeling, scattering, reforming again. Gunfire cracked through the air like tearing cloth. Dust rose in thick clouds, drifting in the hot light of the sun, turning the battlefield into a blur of motion and shadow. Some riders swept past at full gallop. Others fought on foot among the brush and riverbanks. Their shouts and cries carried on the wind. From the ridge, it was impossible to tell who held the advantage. Only that the fight was fierce, chaotic, and raging without mercy. And in that moment, one truth settled heavily on every man watching. They were riding toward the heart of a battle already out of control. Windolph recounts how Reno's detachment descended into the valley, the column of riders spilling off the bluffs and out onto the wide floor of grass and riverbank below, then moving steadily toward the immense native village that stretched along the water like a living city. At first, the troopers still believed the fight ahead would be limited. A sharp clash, a quick charge, something they could overwhelm by force and discipline. But with every yard gained, the truth revealed itself. The village seemed endless, teepees rising row after row, children and families fleeing to safety, while warriors appeared in mounting numbers, circling, watching, preparing. Windolph describes the moment when confidence gave way to a cold, quiet dread. The realization that the opposing force was not only larger than expected, but vast beyond precedent. This was no scattered resistance. This was a united nation standing its ground. And still Reno's men advanced, drawn forward toward a battle that had already grown far beyond the size or scope any officer had dared to imagine. Windolph describes the native encampment as vast, a great sweep of teepees and lodges stretching for miles along the valley floor, with thousands of people gathered in one immense community. It was clear to him that this was not a scattered band, but a powerful alliance of tribes united in one place, their pony herds grazing across the plains, their warriors already moving into position. He later estimated that perhaps only a quarter of the native fighters carried modern repeating rifles, the kind that could fire shot after shot with deadly speed. But the absence of such weapons did not make the rest any less dangerous. Many still fought with older firearms, bows, lances, and sheer mobility, their skill on horseback and knowledge of the land giving them a fearsome advantage. Windolph understood then that the measure of this force was not just in its weapons, but in its numbers, unity, and determination to defend their homes, families, and way of life. The soldiers carried Springfield carbines, single-shot, 45-70 rifles that were accurate and deadly in the open plains. In training and on the parade ground they had seemed reliable, simple to use, strong in the hand, trusted, but in the heat of real battle, the weakness of the weapon revealed itself. Under rapid fire, the breech fouled with residue, the sticky black powder building with every shot, until the metal swelled and the extractor claw slipped free of the casing. Cartridges jammed, shells stuck in the chamber like nails driven into wood. Men clawed at them with knives, digging out the stubborn brass while lead hissed past their heads. A rifle that should have fired again and again suddenly became nothing more than a heavy club. And the problem did not end there. Many troopers fought dismounted, every fourth man forced to hold the horses for the others. 4 mounts dancing nervously under fire, burning through strength and ammunition that should have been in the line. Saddlebags ripped open, cartridges spilled in the dust, and the simple act of passing ammunition became a desperate scramble. So while the Springfield could reach far and strike hard, its limits tightened around the men like a vice. Their rate of fire slowed. Their formations thinned. The enemy pressed closer. Windolph would later remember this not as a failure of courage, but as the hard truth of equipment, terrain, and circumstance. A deadly combination that left many troopers fighting, with weapons that were jamming, horses that were hard to control, and odds that grew worse by the minute. Reno's line could not hold. What began as a steady defense slowly unraveled under the relentless pressure of warriors closing in from every direction. Shots cracked through the dust-filled air, horses screamed, and the skirmish line buckled first in places, then all at once. Order gave way to confusion. Men tried to mount. Others ran for the riverbank, the only hope of escape lying in the cold, fast-moving water below. As they splashed into the current, the attack only intensified. Bullets tore through the river spray. Soldiers were hit mid-crossing. Others were swept downstream or thrown from panicked horses. Some crawled to the far bank, exhausted and bleeding. Many never made it out at all. Windolph's account makes clear that this was not a measured withdrawal, but a desperate flight for survival. A moment when discipline shattered under the weight of fear, chaos, and overwhelming force, leaving the valley floor littered with men who had tried, and failed, to fight their way to safety. Reno and Benteen's combined forces dug in on a low defensive hill, the wagons and pack train finally catching up to form a lifeline of ammunition and supplies. From that exposed ridge, the men carved shallow rifle pits, sharing canteens, steadying frightened horses, and bracing themselves for wave after wave of pressure. They could only guess what was happening to Custer's 5 isolated troops farther north, and the truth was worse than anything imagined. Cut off and surrounded, those companies were overwhelmed and destroyed to the last man, their fight ending far from any hope of support. On the hill, Reno and Benteen's battered command held their ground day and night, exhausted, thirsty, and under near constant threat, yet still refusing to break. It was not victory. It was endurance. and that fragile line survived only because it endured long enough for relief columns to finally reach them, bringing safety, silence, and the heavy knowledge of what had been lost to the north. The account closes by reminding us that the Battle of the Little Bighorn remains one of the most tragic chapters of the Great Sioux War, a moment where courage, miscalculation, and fate collided on the open plains. Through Windolph's calm, precise testimony, the chaos becomes human and real, giving Americans today a rare first-hand window into what truly happened there.